America's school shooting epidemic. Good evening and thanks for joining us for this special Faith Nation. From the CBN studio in our Washington bureau, I'm John Jessup. PTSD, anxiety, and depression, these are just some of the traumatic symptoms from which school shooting survivors suffer. And in America, there's more than 100,000 of them. Faith Nation co-anchor Jenna Browder brings us a look at how to meet some of the needs of these victims and their communities.
My name is Jackie Hegarty, and I'm a survivor of the Sandy Hook school shooting.
My little sister, Jackie Gaceres, was 9 years old when she was killed in a shooting at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas.
School shooting survivors in their own words.
My name is Heather Martin, and I'm a survivor of the shooting at Columbine High School in 1999.
Writing letters to future survivors.
Over the past 10 years, I've struggled with PTSD, anxiety, and depression.
And these struggles are common, with research showing higher antidepressant use among those exposed to school shootings. These events also lead to a drop in enrollment and decline in average test scores. And students exposed are less likely to graduate high school or go on to college.
What we do is, how do we help those communities in the first days and weeks after a tragedy, but then help them with the longer-term recovery efforts that those that were impacted by the event.
Researcher Melissa Breimer directs terrorism and disaster programs at the renowned UCLA Duke National Center for Child Traumatic Stress. She played a key role in Newtown, Connecticut after Sandy Hook.
Can you talk a little bit about that? What did that look like?
With Sandy Hook, they're in what's called Newtown School District. And so we created a program for the entire school district. So we had mental health supports in Sandy Hook, plus the other elementary schools, the intermediate, the middle school, and high school. So we needed to map which students might be more at risk. Were they a sibling of one of the students who died? Did they are cousins, or did they have a close relationship? Were they maybe in the vicinity of where the shooting took place, or had to be in lockdown? Or do they know kids that experienced that?
For kids specifically, what does the support look like for them after a school shooting?
Initially, we're wanting to think about what current needs do they have since they experienced this shooting. Do they have questions about what actually happened? And you might think that if a child went through an event that they would understand what happened. But if you're in lockdown, you only have a snippet of what you experienced from that vantage point. So they might have questions about, is my best friend okay? Were you guys okay as a family? And so addressing those safety questions, helping them to understand what might be happening in the next days to weeks. When school will resume, where it might resume, and what might be different when school starts. If there's more police presence, if there's a change to the schedule, kids need that kind of support. Over time, we know that most kids will heal, but some may need trauma or grief treatments. And we make sure that schools have the training and are able to implement these treatments so that kids can get those types of supports.
And Breimer says it's not just students, but families as well.
My beautiful 14-year-old Gina was murdered at her school on February 14th of 2018.
Tony Montalto lost his daughter in the Parkland, Florida school shooting.
Our 17 families that had a loved one murdered that day at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School banded together because we realized that things needed a change. The status quo was not acceptable.
He's now president of Stand With Parkland, which focuses on these main areas: securing a school campus, improving mental health screenings and support programs, and responsible gun ownership.
The last 5 years, we've passed 7 school safety laws here in Florida. We've helped pass 4 additional federal school safety laws, including the Fix NICS Act, which worked on some background check issues. Stop School Violence Act, which created behavioral threat assessment teams in many schools and provided dollars for hardening the campus.
Breimer wants change as well. In addition, she would like to see bereavement services for kids experiencing grief, support for families navigating social media in the wake of these tragedies, and suicide prevention programs.
Sometimes people give up hope because they've experienced these events. And so what we've also looked at and made sure that we highlighted it is supporting, making sure that there's suicide prevention programs in the schools, helping with identifying kids or adults who are at risk because of these events and making sure that they get help.
I wish someone would have told me that even after a year, I still wouldn't feel like my old self.
And while there is hope for these survivors, getting there is a process that requires support and resources.
You'll never be the same, but you'll learn to live with this. Quite honestly, I'm not there yet. But with the support from the people that you know and love, you'll get there eventually.
In 2023, a shooter stole 6 lives at a Nashville school. When we come back, how parents are using their pain to prevent it from happening again. Welcome back. In 2023, tragedy struck Nashville. A former student opened fire at a Christian school, killing 6 people, including 3 students. It devastated the community. Despite the pain, though, one group of parents is turning their heartbreak into action. CBN's Charlene Aaron has that story.
While memories of the Covenant school shooting continue to linger across Nashville, one group of parents is turning their grief into a tangible action plan to keep schools and students safe.
Let's go!
Body cam video shows Nashville police entering the school, racing toward gunfire to confront and take down the shooter, Audrey Hale. In the end, the shooting left 3 Covenant students and 3 staff members dead. Mary Joyce and Melissa Anderson, whose children attend the school, recall the day.
The feeling of complete helplessness on that day and trying to do anything to get to my child.
They could hear all of the gunshots, and the children, some of them, one grabbed the Bible and started praying. In their minds, as they waited in that moment, hearing what was going on around them, they were preparing to be next.
Their kids still feeling the trauma a year later.
My 9-year-old, now 10-year-old, she just turned 10 a couple weeks ago, doesn't sleep in her own bed yet. She still has nightmares. She is angry during the day over little things, and that's not our child. I don't know how to parent that.
Anderson says her son, a 4th grader at the time, refuses to open up about what happened.
That is heartbreaking in itself because I don't want what he experienced on that 2nd floor to be locked up inside of him.
Covenant father of 3, Brent Leatherwood.
We now know that that evil that day came very, very close to 2 of our children. And that's hard to live with.
A bond these parents all share.
That grief really came over me in a wave a few weeks ago when I was sitting down with another mother in her home, and we were talking about what had happened. Our children were together that day, and just the emotions that I hadn't seen, because I try to hold those back when I'm in public. Those emotions came over me, and I was just angry that I have to live this life. I'm angry for our community.
That anger now the driving force behind a push for gun law changes and safe schools nationwide. Last August, Tennessee Republican Governor Bill Lee called a special session to address the issue.
We say, look, we are conservative Christian families who, I myself am a gun owner, our families are gun owners, and we own guns, yet we want safer gun laws. Those two can coexist. And we believe what we're asking is in line with the Second Amendment.
No meaningful legislation passed in the special session. With nearly 350 U.S. school shootings in 2023, She argues the inaction sends mixed messages to kids.
Children, we are going to send you to school to learn and learn about our country. But wait, you might die today. And this classroom that you're learning in and your desk might be blown to shreds. And you might be in a war zone. And some of your friends might die, and you may die.
Leatherwood, former executive director of the Tennessee Republican Party and Southern Baptist Convention leader, says the shooting has deepened his faith.
So I don't want to say I'm in the same shoes as Job, but I think I'm asking some of those same questions that Job was. And I think that's okay, because I think our God is big enough to handle our questions.
He also calls for urgent action.
This is a place where I personally helped as a staff member usher through significant pro-life legislation. I think if we want to be consistent with that pro-life ethic, the same energy and earnest action that we do on behalf of that vulnerable child in the womb, we need to also do for that vulnerable child in the classroom.
While Covenant students have been attending classes off campus, plans are to reopen the building. As Easter approaches, many hold on to the hope of the gospel.
I ultimately pray for healing. I hope that we show witness to other communities that there is healing and there is also purpose in the pain, and that beautiful thing can come out of what happened in such a horrible, tragic situation.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News, Nashville, Tennessee.
Recognize and react to critical responses in the fight to keep kids safe at school. Next on Faith Nation. School security is now a $3 billion a year business, much of that spent on high-tech equipment. But as CBN National Security Correspondent Caitlin Burke reports, some experts say the money would be better spent on training staff and students to recognize and respond to threats.
Let's go! Metro Police!
As school shootings become almost commonplace on the evening news, children, parents, and officials find themselves struggling with how to keep schools safe.
The children of this country are demanding action. Our classrooms have become killing fields. Is that acceptable?
I don't think one piece of legislation solved this. We got to deal with mental illness.
School security has grown to a $3 billion industry, with investments in everything from video surveillance technology to bulletproof doors and electronic locks. And while technology is important, experts say it likely would not prevent the next attack.
When people are the problem, people are always going to be the solution.
Jimmy Graham is the CEO and founder of Able Shepherd, an elite active shooter training program in Denver, Colorado. Graham says it's people knowing exactly what to do in an emergency that saves lives.
So I'll walk into an institution and I'll say, can I talk to this lady right here? And I say, ma'am, what would you do if you heard gunshots? She says, I don't know. I said, well, that's where we need to start.
Drawing on his background as a Navy SEAL and involvement with the CIA's Global Response Staff, Graham developed DEFEND. The acronym stands for Defense, Evacuate, Fortify, Emergency Medical Aid, Notify Others, and Dial 911. A strategy based on international safety protocols.
There's an unbelievably efficient model for protecting our diplomats overseas, but not our children. Right? So why is that? Because it's the same model. That model, what I've done is I've scaled it and said we don't need, some of this stuff is not applicable, but to bring that back home and place the principles, here's the defensive principle. To get to them, you have to go through me.
Able Shepherd also provides training for those likely to respond to active shooter situations, whether that be an individual, a security team, law enforcement, or even faculty. The training is reality-based, allowing those who go through it to experience live scenarios.
Gunshot, gun out, be ready, be ready, be ready. Pow! Whoa! Tell him to stay down, tell him to go down.
Graham stresses that even with all the right tools, security plans won't work if school leaders don't maintain the proper environment.
The best way to describe it would be this. I get a whole faculty together and I say, whose job is it to protect this place? And everybody at the same time says, mine.
In 1999, as a first responder at Columbine, Deacon Ernie Martinez experienced the moment the country realized children weren't safe at school.
The big wake-up call was twofold, I think. Number one is their evil does exist without any reasons for it, right? And number two is it woke us up to, as not only a law enforcement community, but as a community as a whole, that everybody should participate in.
Martinez, now retired after 40 years in law enforcement, is the director of deacons for the Archdiocese of Denver. Among his roles, helping schools in the Archdiocese come up with security plans.
The important thing is collaboration, leveraging assets, partnering with local law enforcement, because we have parishes and churches and schools all across northern Colorado, and everybody is in their own different financial statuses, right? So you need to partner with your local law enforcement. You need to partner with local schools, whether they're public schools or not.
It's common sense steps like training and collaboration that experts believe provide schools the best chance at stopping an active shooter, since preventing them entirely is highly unlikely.
We're unique, right? What does America have that other countries don't have? Two things. One, a Second Amendment, and two, more guns than people. By most accounts, there's over 450 million guns for just over 300 million people.
Back in 2016, research from Johns Hopkins University found even the highest priced technology did nothing to help stop mass shootings. Researchers writing, quote, "There is no universal school safety solution. No one technology will solve all school safety and security issues. The sheer number of schools and school districts across the country, with different geography, funding, building construction and layout, demographics, and priorities, make each one different."
What does school safety look like in our country? It looks as bad as Uvalde and as good as Tennessee, and everything in the middle.
Former D.C. Homeland Security Chief Donnell Harvin says it's important that people keep talking about school security even after the news cycle moves on.
Many people are apathetic and have given up, and many people are desensitized. And we can't allow that apathy and that kind of, mindset to take hold of the fact that the next shooter is planning and there's kids in that classroom.
When it comes to school security, parents can also make a difference. The key is communication. Ask your child's school what they're doing, what they're not, and then don't stop asking until you get the right answer. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Denver, Colorado.
Coming up, stopping mass shooters before they pull the trigger. How a new program is helping to curb the nation's epidemic to violence. When it comes to school shootings, most attackers are young people struggling with mental and emotional issues who go on to research their plans on the internet. Now, as Brody Carter reports, an online ministry is using high-tech search tools to identify potential shooters and connect them with the help they need to redirect their path before they pick up a gun.
Given the staggering growth of these violent deaths, national leaders and experts often find themselves dealing with aftermath rather than planning on prevention. One of the more frightening statistics is the number of deadly mass shootings carried out by somebody 21 or younger. That's become a focus for the Let's Talk to Them initiative.
We believe that individuals who are both suicidal and have some deep-seated anger, maybe hatred, maybe vengeance, probably at some point will contemplate a mass shooting.
It's a morbid connection that suicide and homicide are the second and third leading causes of death for those between the ages of 10 and 24.
I think that a lot of people are looking for a mental health solution without necessarily knowing what that mental health solution is.
Jordan Estrada is certainly familiar with the issue as a first responder, spending the last 15 years helping organizations put together active shooter response plans. Using that background and experience, he wants to focus on prevention by connecting potential killers with those willing and able to help.
So Let's Talk to Them is a new initiative that is attempting to reach potential mass shooters, individuals who might be ideating or planning a mass shooting with a message of deterrence and redirection onto a better path.
Let's Talk to Them started in 2020 following the back-to-back tragedies in Uvalde, Texas and Buffalo, New York. In those cases, both shooters bought their weapons after turning 18 and used social media as their sounding board.
If somebody Googles or searches for any word relating to suicide,
They have a response of websites to click into and phone numbers to call 24 hours a day.
Ken Churchill started Talented Ventures to help fund initiatives improving societal health, like Let's Talk to Them. In this case, he points out how big tech search engine optimization on the topic of self-harm can provide help for anyone browsing the internet with self-destructive thoughts or questions. Compare that to search results on statements like, "I want to commit a mass shooting," where there's not one link to help.
And while they're searching for that, we could be searching for them and reach out to them, try to create a connection, try to engage them, and give them thoughts about other paths.
Today, Stark helps Estrada and Churchill try to better understand that mindset. The team is searching for content, media, blogs, and videos that might speak to anyone contemplating mass violence.
We want to make sure that it connects with the mindset of these individuals in a way that does not encourage or incite them to continue, but rather de-escalates them, calms them down, gets them to pause, gets them to think.
Let'sTalkToThem.com is the introduction page. It shares their vision to help. However, an undisclosed dark web page is now fully operational, connecting potential mass shooters with redirectional content and chat features.
At this point, are engaging with them and encouraging them to hit buttons on our website that make a phone call to 988, the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. But it's their choice to do the connection. The second thing that we have on the website currently is a live human 24-hour-a-day chat feature where specialists, particularly in suicide and other types of harm, these are Christian people, that they could choose to be in a chat. It's offered on our website.
The organization says this isn't about surveillance or espionage. Instead, the goal is to be a light shining into the dark corners of the web. Each situation varies, however, so police could potentially get involved. Estrada says the reason behind his decision to help is because God's love is for everyone, even some capable of committing mass violence. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Well, thanks so much for joining us for this special edition of Faith Nation. Have a great night.